Good evening, YouTube. Tire Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully you guys are doing well. This one, I'm going to warn you in advance, is probably going to be a very long video because there's a lot to talk about. There's multiple sides to this upcoming storm system that's set to come in next week. There's severe, there's snow, there's flooding, there's a tornado threat. It's wild. So all I'm going to say is if you're going to follow along, just buckle up. I'm going to try to timestamp this as best as I can, and hopefully I don't make this an hour-long video, but here we go. So if you saw my post earlier today, we now have a day 6 and day 7 slight risk now. So both of these are associated with the same storm system. So right now, we have a slight risk issued for Norman, the eastern half of Oklahoma City, I would say, Tulsa, Wichita Falls, Texas, or just to the east of there. Dallas is involved in this. This is a day 6 slight risk. This was actually issued yesterday, and not much has changed with it. There's extremely high model confidence that there will be severe weather in this region. And I would even go as far as to say there could be a potential enhanced risk area within the next couple of days if these model trends hold, because I've seen a lot of consistency over the course of the last couple of days with this. So this is going to be interesting to watch. But when we go to day 7, area shifts a little further to the east. Now we're starting to get areas like Shreveport, Louisiana, Alexandria in play, Lufkin, Texas. Then we're getting back into Mississippi again, in Arkansas. We're getting Little Rock involved. We're getting Greenville, Mississippi. We're getting Jackson, Mississippi. Memphis, you're knocking on the door of this slight risk right here as well. So we're going to have to watch you very closely as well, because this can easily expand or shrink depending on how parameters fluctuate as we draw closer to the actual day of said event. But it's pretty good but even on this day, there's pretty high confidence. I'm also going to even go as far as to say that I also think there is some potential for severe weather on the 14th through the 15th as well. I do think the hazard type is going to lean more towards damaging straight line winds, but I'm not going to rule out the other two hazards at all. This is a super robust storm system, and this looks like it's going to be a monster. I honestly hope I'm wrong on this. I honestly hope what I'm seeing is wrong on this, because this is eerie to see, to say the least. But let's go ahead and look at what the vorticity looks like. We're sheerly going to be focusing on this storm here. This is on the evening of December 10th, on Saturday, heading into Sunday. Here's this little piece of energy that's hanging around the northern tier of the country. This is going to get kicked off out to sea and out of the country, and this is also going to be what almost kind of forms into our trough ejection. And I've said those words before. Whenever you hear me, any weather YouTuber or anyone on the Weather Channel say something along the lines of trough ejection, pay attention, because usually this will mean something big is coming. And that's exactly what's going on here. So as you can see, as this moves in, this gets kicked out. And you can already kind of see how this trough is almost completely gone neutral and is really digging far to the south, has some pretty rich cold air behind it as well. And then almost looks like it tries to go a little bit negative, but then it becomes closed off and brings in a lot of cold air, brings a lot of energy in with it, a lot of spin with this as well. But just out ahead of this, we have quite a warm sector that develops right here. You can almost see it just based on this little area right here. This is a ridge that's popped up. So we're getting warm air and moisture over these regions here. And this is what's going to set the stage for our severe weather threat. This is the first part of several parts, I should say. But the 12th, as we went over just a minute ago, we're going to be looking more over towards this area. On the 13th, we're starting to look more over towards the Ozarks. So far, there hasn't been anything issued for the 14th and the 15th, but I do think that somewhere around here where I'm drawing this cursor right now is going to be our point of interest. And it looks like my computer's frozen, so we're gonna have to see what it does. Hopefully, actually, no, it's actually working. Good. I can never tell these days. This computer and I have not gotten along well. Oh wait, we are working. We are up and running. So again, next day, and one thing I want to note here is the zonal flow with this system. Like here is where the trough is starting to dive in here, and we're looking at our neutral tilt. But look at how the amplitude of the trough changes as we get further off to the east. This is one thing I'm definitely concerned about, because this kind of lends itself into more of a tornadic type of setup, discrete supercell setup. We'll have to see how this trends, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing with this. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how strong things could get if this were to come to fruition, but we're going to have to definitely be watching this really closely. So if you live anywhere around Oklahoma City, towards Dallas, towards anywhere in East Texas as well, I urge you to watch this very closely. If you know anyone that lives in these regions, share this in advance. Let them get a leg up on this storm system, because you don't want to get caught by surprise by this thing, because based off what I'm seeing, this thing means business. We're rolling to the 13th, and I think storm modes are possible maybe early in the morning of the 13th and then lingering throughout the day. I do think earlier in the day, that's when the potential tornado discrete supercell threat will be highest, and then as we go on, I think we will start to transition into more of a linear type event. There might be a window in the evening hours where there could be some severe weather around Alabama, and then in the morning hours, this will work its way through Georgia and into the Carolinas, because this does have a look where there could be some instability in the overnight hours around this region. So we'll have to watch that, of course. But this system looks like it's going to bring in not just a big severe weather threat, but just look at how this is closed off and how much cold air there is revolving around this thing. This could be some huge snow totals up in the northern tier of the U.S. This will probably, if this brings the kind of snow that I'm thinking it'll bring, it would be enough to last into Christmas. So you wouldn't even have to get snow on Christmas to have a white Christmas for a lot of these regions. Although that's nothing new for these guys up here. But this storm system also lingers for quite a while too. This kind of hangs around, especially towards the northern tier of the country. We get to the Ohio Valley. This looks like a big snowstorm, possibly even a blizzard, because this system has a boatload of wind energy with it. So winds are going to probably be felt pretty much all throughout the entire country as the storm system rolls through. Even when the storms are over in the southeast, for example, this little streak of energy right here is going to tells you a lot about how much energy this system is going to have. So even as this cold front passes, there's going to be a lot of wind to go with it. So it's going to make the preceding weekend, or the weekend after the storms, very uncomfortable, very chilly. So make sure you're anticipating that. And then, of course, the Euro has this continuously trending towards more of a coastal type of storm. Although it does look like it's a little bit further inland this time around. But there's also more cold air to work with as well. So this is kind of up in the air as far as the wintry side is concerned. Make our little comparison with the GFS really quick. It's a little bit different, albeit not by much. Oops, and I've clicked the sounding viewer. I thought I was clear of that. I guess not. One of the many things you gotta love about tropical tidbits. So we'll move this along. It's pretty much the same deal. Like I said, there's a lot of confidence already in this system. We're starting to get close as we get close to the 90-hour runs of the Euro. I'd only think that confidence will continue to increase if we continue to see the same things that we've been seeing. So we move this along. But one interesting feature about the GFS is that this system ends up moving a little bit further north. So I think a few more areas to the south might get more snow. Maybe as far south as Kansas, northern Kansas, I would say. But the severe weather threat also might linger a little bit longer because this also will force this jet stream to go further north. So we could have more severe weather potentially around Kentucky now. I'm not entirely sure still, but if this ridge moves further north, that will leave more ample instability to be had. Of course, we'll also have to look at the winds towards the low levels and the surface and go on from there. But this is an interesting variable that we have to take into account now. We'll watch this move along across the Great Lakes, and still a lot of uncertainty lies with this part of the system once we get towards the 16th and the 18th. This is just outside the Euro's range at this point, but it looks like maybe it could be a bigger snow event towards the northeast, with this low pressure being more inland, actually north of the border, so to speak. Or there's definitely, at the very least, a lot of cold air. The moisture is going to be the question as far as this is concerned. We'll figure that out in a little bit here. But that's it for that storm, for the upcoming storm system. Let's go ahead and look at the low-level jet, which I'm honestly kind of terrified of, because this is going to be kind of difficult to this is going to be kind of crazy when I show you just what I've been seeing. All right, I'm trying to set up the GFS. We'll actually go ahead and look at that first. All right, I'm trying to make sure we got everything right here. If you saw last night's video, I should say, you'll kind of see why I'm a little bit I'm kind of like, oh boy, this is gonna be crazy, because I was seeing an 80 knot jet at the low levels of the atmosphere, 850 millibars, which is crazy. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a run like that before. I was thinking surely this could be wrong, but the Euro was showing something similar. We have downtrended on it just a tad, but not by much. We're still getting into those upper 50s on the low level jet, and even some 60s looking possible here. So yeah, that's just, like I said, this is just telling you how much energy this storm system has. It's potent. I'm definitely not ruling out blizzard conditions over towards areas like Minnesota, maybe even North Dakota, South Dakota too. But I'm really concerned about this area over here towards Minnesota and parts of Wisconsin as well. And then look at this little jet streak that pops up right here. This is very concerning to me too. This has a very eerie resemblance to another storm system I've looked at in years past. It was actually pretty recent, so I'm not going to state which one it is, but we have to watch that really close due to the simple fact that this is a very strong low-level jet streak. And given the parameters, given the direction of the upper levels of the atmosphere, this could be trouble. Let's just hope that this downtrends. But even as this low pressure forms here, just look at this. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable seeing this kind of energy at the low levels of the atmosphere. You normally see these the winds at about maybe 60 knots towards maybe the mid levels or higher levels of the atmosphere. It's kind of crazy to look at this. Then it just upticks from there as we go towards the 15th. Thankfully, I don't think for sure that there's going to be a big severe weather threat on the 15th. Maybe towards the early morning hours, but I think it'll be a little too far out ahead of this jet streak. I think the instability will be lacking at this point. I'm sure hoping so at the very least. But this super robust storm system rolls through, and it really isn't until the 16th or 17th when things look like they'll start to quiet down. But geez, like, this is enough to make your head spin. And then also when we look at the euro, it's not like we're too much. There's too much difference. And keep in mind, I'm looking at a 12Z euro. So this is the 12th, the morning hours, and then we already get that jet streak developing a little early around this region, but it's a little bit further north. This could kind of downtick the tornado threat just slightly. But even so, we're still getting that 40 to 50 knot low level jet. Somewhat of a jet streak starting to develop here. And this picks up as we get into the later hours. Look at that. This is when we're getting towards that 50 to 55 knot area. Maybe even some areas getting closer to 60. But as we go towards the 13th, this is what I'm concerned about right here. This little area right here where we're getting towards 63 knots. And this is towards about noontime on Tuesday next week. That's a problem. So we'll have to, like I said, we're going to have to watch this very closely because these parameters are not something to be messed with here. And then, of course, it's a similar story. A little bit weaker on the trends here with the Euro versus the GFS. But even then, to be seeing 60 knots at the low level jet, that's nuts. Like, I don't think I've ever seen. Well, I have seen one instance. I think it was the 2011 super outbreak where we had a ridiculous low level jet. But even so, I don't think I remember seeing 80 knots at 850 millibars. That's nuts. It's unheard of to me. But this is pretty much a very similar look. I'm also concerned, of course, for blizzard conditions. And this actually has this jet streak going a little bit further south too. So depending on where this snow would go, I would also put Iowa into the equation here. Maybe more parts of Wisconsin. Michigan looks like they're in the clear for now. But we'll move this along. And eventually they end up getting into that too. But just look at the intensity of this system. Like it's honestly mind-blowing. Wow. I'm kind of speechless, to be honest. But enough talking about the severe side. We're going to look a little bit further into the wintry side now and start to make a couple of comparisons here. So we're going to start out by looking at the 500 millibar height with our low pressure system. This is a really, like I said, this is a really robust system. Oops, this is the wrong one. Oh, shoot. Oh, come on. Yeah, I'm having problems again. Or I'm just sleepy, to be honest with you. It's been a very long day. Got a video up for you guys this morning. That video is more for the Weather Nerd 101 playlist. It's just for anyone that's really interested in how weather works on a more advanced level, I would say. But anyway, here's our upcoming system here. And we can see where this little small piece of energy is here. Not very impressive, of course, but this will get kicked out and be sort of like a miniature trough ejection. And then, of course, we can see the huge bowling ball with rich cold air coming in behind this, clashing with this warm air here. And this is where we can expect a lot of action. This is a pretty strong warm air mass, too. Look how far north it is, even towards Canada. So, of course, we know what happens when warm and cold air clash. So this is going to be our area of interest. This also has a look of a potential overnight threat, too, as a result. But just look how far this cold air starts to spread behind this front that's going to develop. Unbelievable. Once we get towards areas like New Mexico and Texas, maybe even Arizona, we're starting to push towards that freezing mark here. We'll move this along and look how, even then, look at how far this 540 line is. The 540 line is our 32 degree line. This is our freezing point. Even areas like Missouri, like northern Missouri, could get some significant snow out of this. Maybe even blizzard conditions, possibly. I think the greatest threat, of course, will be over here, but we can't rule out areas like Missouri now, even parts of Illinois, maybe even Chicago. Just just mind blowing what this system looks like right now. Move this along, and then we got to look towards the Great Lakes, then eventually towards the Northeast. I'm definitely thinking with this track, Buffalo, a lot of Great Lake areas are going to get walloped here. And then even towards the coast here, there could be a significant amount of snow. You might end out as rain, possibly, depending on how the moisture flow ends up. But for some areas, as quickly as that snow will come in, some of this will begin to melt pretty quick as we will start to warm up towards the 18th, only to find another cold air mass coming in behind it. Make our comparison to the Euro, and we'll just give this along just a tiny bit. Here's our giant storm coming in from the west here. It's slightly colder with the Euro. Track's slightly different. But even so, it looks like the result's a little bit, pretty much the same. Huge area of cold air comes in. And then on top of that, over towards the Ohio Valley, we have to look for increased potential for winter weather over there. And then this goes a little bit more towards the coast, but even so, it brings in rich cold air. I think this actually opens up a little bit more snow potential towards the southeast, which is nuts. But this is going to be a handful for me to keep up with. But this is why I made the channel. I kind of like these challenges, to be honest, so let's do it. But anyway, let's go ahead and see what the precip looks like, so that way I can talk in a language that more of you might be able to understand. You're probably just like, Ty, I don't get any of this. Just show me what it might look like on radar. Well, here we are. We're finally here. Oops. Maybe not. Maybe we're not finally here. Because this has been a long video already, I'm sure. I'm almost scared to look. But anyway, here's what the 12th looks like. Looks a little odd on the GFS. I do think this area will be the area of interest when we look towards the 12th. There we go. I think it's going to be right around this little boundary that would end up popping up here. Although the 18Z Euro is a little odd right now, I'm not going to lie. It's a good warm sector, but I don't really see any evidence of storms popping up here. Towards the 14th, I definitely see a little something here. And then it's interesting because also parts of Iowa and Missouri here are going to start out as rain, but as this storm system moves around a bit, could get some snow on the backside of it, but it doesn't quite reach as far south. Of course, when we look towards the severe side, again, just as I was predicting, right around the 13th, this will start out as maybe a multicellular, maybe supercellular storm mode, and eventually we start to transition towards more of a linear style threat. And then, of course, as we go towards the 15th, it's going to be more of the same, more of an early morning threat, and then this will get kicked out into the Atlantic. And we start to lose, and here's the part we really have been waiting on. As this storm system moves north of the border, we start to lose a lot of that moisture support that it would need to bring heavier snow beyond the Great Lakes. So a lot of areas like New York City, it looks like you guys actually won't be getting a lot of snow out of this. It's going to be cold, though. It's going to be colder for sure. But that's pretty much what we have going on here. And then we have to stare down yet another system that'll be coming in around the 18th and 19th. We'll see how things go with that. But this is also a really interesting setup because that last system dragged in so much cold air. But that's going to be another video for another day. I'm going to try to close some of these out. Maybe I can salvage some space somehow. But here's what the Euro is looking like. This is the 12th. Maybe we can get a little bit better of a picture from the Euro than we can the GFS. Okay, so this is getting towards the wee hours of the 12th, so this definitely paints more of a nocturnal threat with the Euro. But it looks more like a multicellular mode. Here's what I would expect to be our front right about here. So we're going to have storms forming on the boundary, storms forming out ahead of it. And then we're going to have a messy convection mode heading into the 13th. But I do think some supercells could be possible as well in the earlier part of the day. Then, of course, as we get towards the afternoon, this becomes more of a linear threat. On the 14th, this becomes just a big old line of storms, potentially a QLCS. And then as we move this about, it's going to be a big mess of rain by the 15th. So we'll have to watch out for the threat of flash flooding. And then also, here's one other thing I want to note is look at the ice around here. Or a wintry mix that forms up here. So that's going to be another interesting variable there. This low pressure goes a little bit off the coast here. Doesn't get, still not a lot of moisture support. I think the severe weather is going to take a lot of that up. But as a result, though, there may be some extra cold air that comes in behind this rain. And there could be some snow. Especially looks like there could be heavier snow off to the east of areas like Buffalo in particular. But the snow threat is definitely still very much prevalent towards the more interior parts of the Northeast as well. I'm a little less certain about the coastal areas, but we'll have to see how things progress with that. One other thing I'm going to kind of rewind back to just to make sure I have that right. And it looks like there could be some blizzard conditions mainly towards the Dakotas now. I was thinking maybe there would be a little bit more snow available towards Minnesota, and there very well might be. But this snow actually seems to scatter on both the GFS and the Euro, which I was expecting a little bit more of a consistent snow shield. But that just doesn't look like it's the case as of right now. We'll have to see what happens from that point. But this is just one of many moving parts here. Last thing to do here is to make our comparisons with the snow totals, and I think we'll be done. Anyone want to make any wagers on the potential of this being a 40-minute video? If so, I mean, I think we're on track to. I think you're on track to win. Sheesh. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna just kind of fast forward to the end right here. Here are our final snow totals as of right now. Oops, gone back now. May as well run through it. So over towards the Rockies, nothing new there. Next system comes through, brings in a little moisture, a little bit of snow pops off. And then here's where things get interesting as we head towards the 11th. Look how far south into the Sierras we get with this snow system right here. And then there's a lot of pockets here, especially towards the mountains, where we could get up to about maybe 3 feet of snow. And then as we move further and further along, our snowy side of this system gets into some areas that we don't usually see snow at. Like we're getting in towards the northern half of Arizona, even getting towards the central parts of it. And some areas could get about 1 to 2 feet, which is insane. But keep in mind, this is the Euro and the GFS. We're gonna look at the final totals from the National Weather Service blended models. That's the one I usually will tend to go to more than anything. But look at these totals over here towards North and South Dakota, where that snow shield is the most intense. Just in the lighter areas, we're still looking at maybe 7 to 10 inches plus easy. Some areas could get about almost 2 feet of snow, and the winds around here are going to be very strong. So again, this looks like we might have blizzard conditions possible right here. There's a pretty high likelihood, if anything. Still, we can't rule out blizzard conditions possible around Minnesota too. So we'll move this along here. And see how that snow shield kind of spreads out a bit? And even towards the coast, we still look like we're gonna get some snow, but not nearly as much as what I would have been expecting given the track of this. But a lot of that's gonna have to do with the moisture. Let's make a comparison with the GFS. And here's our comparison. It's not too much different. It's a little bit more aggressive over towards this area. Oh my goodness, I saw one area that had 86 inches of snow. Actually 90. That's crazy. But look at the snow totals here. There's some spots the GFS has maybe 30 inches of snow towards North Dakota. That's crazy. Then even South Dakota, there's a few areas here that look like we could get 41 inches, 43 inches. That's crazy. And the same can be said towards Minnesota. Minnesota looks like it's going to have a much more aggressive run according to the GFS. Some areas could see almost up to 2 feet of snow here. Same can be said for Wisconsin. I do think these are overdone. I'm not going to lie. It's a bit reaching right now. We'll have to see how the storm trends. I honestly wouldn't hope that you guys don't end up getting this much snow. I think that would be I think that would be something that even the Dakotas wouldn't be ready for, as seasoned as they are when it comes to snow. But that's just how powerful this storm is too, though. Even towards Michigan, we're looking like we could get up to about 10 inches towards southern Michigan, which is crazy. That kind of doesn't really match up with what I was seeing on the models too, so it's a little bit of a throw off there. But some places towards Pennsylvania and more towards central New York would still get up to about a foot, maybe even 15 inches. Just a bunch of chaos. And the scary thing is, when I look at the blend of models, it's not like it's too far off here, because this is usually a median between models like the GFS and the Euro here. So here comes our storm system here. And we're still getting crazy totals over towards the Sierras. Nothing too far out of sorts. That was anticipated, honestly. We go over towards these regions here. Business has picked up pretty quick. We're already getting into about 3 to 4 inches. And this is on Tuesday. This isn't when most of the snow's really fallen yet. It's when we get towards Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning is when we start to get the ridiculous snow totals. Look at that. We're already looking at a foot. And I think there's still more snow to fall with this system. And we move this along. Some areas could be finishing out at close to 2 feet here, which is a little bit more reasonable. 30 inches doesn't sound like it would be out of the question here, but I do think that's a little bit bold. Further south towards South Dakota, where we were seeing 41 inches, I thought that was a bit bogus. But again, I think this area right up in here is going to be the area where we could be concerned about blizzard conditions. But beyond that, once we get over towards the northeast, we're looking at a lot of areas that could be seeing about 1 to 2 inches towards the coast. As we get further inland, there could be 6 to 10 inches, maybe even a couple isolated pockets of a foot of snow, or maybe even more than that. But that just goes to show how robust this storm system is. Again, do not take this lightly. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but you definitely want to be prepared for this. And if by some chance you're watching my video, definitely try to get an early start on the store. If you're in this area, if you're in this area right here, or if you're in these areas here, this is your chance to get a head start. Don't necessarily clean the store out, especially if you don't have it like that, because there's a lot that can still change with this system, but kind of ease into preparing for it. And don't cause a lot of panic along the way, but also share this with your friends. Try to make sure that you're looking out for one another in an event like this. So, yeah, I got a lot of editing to do with this video. Wish me luck on that. But this is the end of the video. Definitely like the video, especially if you made it to the end. I appreciate you. I'm sorry you had to go through all of this with me. But also Subscribe if you haven't, especially if you're enjoying the content. I do stuff like this pretty often, and I usually bring in a lot of content on the regular. But yeah, this has been Tired Metalhead Weatherman. You guys have a good night. Probably not going to be a video in the morning because I'm going to be practically knocked out cold by the time this is up. But have a good night, you guys. Stay safe. I'll have an update video for you guys soon.